under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
Hey guys, good evening and welcome to another edition of Stateside Footy, man. I'm your host, Steve Silver, and we're doing it again. This is the version 2.0 of the U.S. Men's National Team World Cup roster prediction show. It's kind of a hybrid, if you will. A stock up, stock down type show. We do this after every single window between, it was started actually after the Gold Cup and now all the way until we hit World Cup 2026. It's a good evaluation of exactly where we stand after each international window. Of course, last night, the U.S. men's national team absolutely looked brilliant in a 2-0 clean sheet win versus Japan. And I know there's a lot of discourse on X and on TikTok and all these other things about the fact that Japan wasn't necessarily playing their first team. Yeah, neither were we. But that being said, it was still something that absolutely needed, especially for the sake of momentum, and just to kind of get some good vibes going within that dressing room, especially when we talk about Mauricio Pochettino. So before we get into it, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe buttons because this channel is exponentially growing, especially over the last couple of months. And of course, we are in a race to 1,000 subs, and I do appreciate those that have shown me some love over the last couple of months. So make sure you do hit those like and subscribe buttons, and let's get on with it. We do actually have some news and notes real quick. And this came out today that FIFA is going to change their international window starting after the 2026 World Cup. There won't be a September and October window. They're going to combine them. And it looks like there's going to be like a 4-week international break where 4 matches are going to be taking place. And I actually kind of like this. It's going to give national teams far more time together. Me personally, I actually think it's a good idea. The more time national teams have together, the better prepared they're going to be when it comes to international friendlies and competitions and these sort of things. And I actually think FIFA got this right. I would actually also like to see the Confed Cup come back. Every 2 years, I was a big fan of the Confed Cup, but I can dream. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. And again, this is the version 2.0 of the U.S. Men's National Team World Cup roster prediction show. Of course, we're going to be doing this after every international window. And we're going to start off today. Yeah, by the way, it's funny how personal people have been taking the whole Christian Roldan thing, right? There's always seems to be an opinion. The Euro snobs of the U.S. men's national team fan base has an opinion on it. And then, of course, those that are a little bit rational like me kind of sees it for what it is. I actually kind of find it funny that this is what we're talking about actually after a decisive win against a top 15 in the ELO ranking national team, and of course battle lines are being drawn over a guy like Christian Roldan. Funny to me. We're going to get into it too, but let's start with the goalkeepers right here. And of course, after the international window, of course, we had Jonathan Klinsmann, we had Roman Celentano, and of course, those two names are not going to be mentioned on my depth chart. Obviously, Matt Freese right now is my number one, and of course, he actually kind of had an up and down window. There didn't necessarily play all that great against South Korea, although he did actually have some decent saves. But for the most part, it was kind of a stressful first match against South Korea. But then again, he turned it around against Japan, and he actually played quite brilliantly. And even though there was a tactical change where there was 5 at the back, so it was a little bit more protection, he still had some work to do against Japan. And I actually thought he needed to make the saves that he had to make. He looked confident on his back line. But that being said, especially even when it came to set pieces and corners, he looked good, man. He looked strong. He looked confident. And this is exactly the type of outing that you need to actually have, especially as a fan, if you actually want to have confidence in a position that historically is one of our stronger. But that being said, as of right now, he's my number one. But that being said, it can flip on a dime too, because Matt Turner now back in Major League Soccer, not exactly playing for the greatest teams in Major League Soccer. But that being said, all it takes is for him to go on a string of 2 or 3 wins and 2-3 good performances where all of a sudden now he's going to be back in the national team picture. And I actually think that right now he's number 2. I think Matt Freese and Matt Turner are our 2 best goalkeepers right now. I guess that kind of shows you the weakness of this goalkeeper group. But that being said, it is what it is. Matt Turner is the experience, having won that position back in 2022, kind of held it a little bit through Copa America 24. Before ultimately giving it up to Matt Freese. But I actually think that competition is going to be a lot closer than people think, because again, I would probably assume that Matt Turner comes back into camp in October after watching what Celentano and Jonathan Klinsmann had in training. I would probably assume that's the reason why we didn't see any of those 2 goalkeepers play against Japan. There's a lot that actually can be assessed in training. And it gives you an idea of just exactly where the level of those 2 are. Yes, Jonathan Klinsmann plays in Europe, but he's playing for a Serie B side. Again, not exactly. We don't necessarily know exactly what that actually means when it comes to competition. I got to be the first to admit that I don't watch the Italian Serie B. So from what I know about the level of competition, it's probably on par with the French second division. So I would probably assume that at that point, Major League Soccer probably has, especially for goalkeepers, is probably a better league, considering that Major League Soccer is an attacking front foot type of league. So the sharpness levels are probably going to be better in Major League Soccer than you would probably find in the Italian second division. That being said, when it comes to my third choice right now, it's kind of hard to tell. If you actually asked me, who you actually have as your third goalkeeper, and you said Zach Steffen, Patrick Schulte, Ethan Horvath, Diego Coach, and Chris Beatty, I would have been like, sure, whatever, because the third keeper is most likely not going to see the field whatsoever in the World Cup. So I guess the question is what do you value more? Do you value the experience with a guy like Zach Steffen, who we know exactly how he's going to play, exactly what he brings, or do you value this as an opportunity to bring maybe some future goalkeepers into the fray to kind of give them an opportunity to see and feel what a World Cup environment is all about, to have that training and the camaraderie with the first team? Okay, I'm with you. I'm actually going to be I would be quite okay if that was the route that you guys wanted to take. I will say this though, that Ethan Horvath, the reason why I have him on this list is because he still is playing in the championship, the English second division. He got the move to Sheffield Wednesday, and he's actually been playing pretty well for Sheffield Wednesday. And that's actually kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of surprising, considering that if you know anything about Sheffield Wednesday and what's going on, with their ownership and exactly what's going on with their roster. It's threadbare. They're under a transfer embargo, so that means that if anybody's going to get brought in on a free, it has to be signed off on. And of course, Ethan Horvath was signed off on, but he's actually played pretty goddamn decently for Sheffield Wednesday, which means you have to put his name down. Now, whether or not Pochettino is going to bring him in is yet to be seen. I can't necessarily remember if Horvath was brought in under Poch yet. But that being said, if he continues to play pretty well, I would probably assume that that name is going to be mentioned at some time. But I would probably assume that when it comes to this third goalkeeper position, I guess the first question you have to ask yourself, number one, when it comes to the 2030 cycle, whether or not Matt Turner or Matt Freese are probably going to be second cycle guys, right? Although this would be Turner's second cycle, but I'm referring more to Freese. So, if you believe he's got that type of talent where he has a good World Cup and he potentially moves over to Europe, and then he stays in that number one position for the next 4 years, or if you feel like guys like Patrick Schulte or Diego Cochin or Gaga Slonina, guys like that are probably going to be the future, and whether or not you value that, having them at the World Cup, getting that experience, and getting a feel for what that next cycle is going to be like. And from that standpoint, I would probably be okay with that, right? It's going to be interesting to see exactly what's going to end up happening with Gaga Slonina. I think he's Chelsea's number 3 right now. Wasn't able to get a loan. But that being said, I would probably assume that this is not necessarily for 2026, but 2030. That dude's got to figure it out. And if that means coming back to Major League Soccer, so be it. That dude needs to play. But outside of that, you pick it. It's kind of like a pick 'em for that third one. I would probably go with the youth because historically that seems to be the case for the third goalkeeper. We always brought the future. Not always, but it seems like that might be the best course of action. So I would probably bring Diego Cochin because I probably think that right now he's probably the best of the young goalkeepers, unless you value Patrick Schulte. Don't know. Leave that one in the chat, by the way. Let me know how you feel about the goalkeepers, who you have, number one, and how do you rank them. Love to have that conversation. All right, let's turn to the right back situation. And this one for me is cut, like seriously cut and dry. Serginho Dest, number one. I gotta say this, that at times, especially in that first game against South Korea, I wasn't necessarily all that impressed. But that being said, you also have to talk about this in context, because this was his first window, fully healthy and in form, playing for Mauricio Pochettino, and I probably would feel that there would be some, I wouldn't say necessarily technical issues, but also like verbiage, right? Communication issues between the two, trying to feel each other out to figure out exactly, the best situation for him as far as tactically goes. But that being said, he also came on late in the second game against Japan. But that being said, he's night and day better than anything that we have to offer at the right back position, especially moving forward. And now that we know that 3-4, that 3-4-2-1 or 3-5-2, whatever combination they want to use moving forward, essentially playing with 5 in the back and using wing backs. You have to look at this from that context, because now that there's cover, there's 3 center backs, so there's going to be cover when it comes to certain spaces, especially when Dest is going to track back and drop back into defense, right? So there's going to be cover out there. That makes him even more valuable, right? Because he's going to be starting and he's on the roster for his attacking abilities, not necessarily his defense. But that being said, now that we're kind of adjusting a little bit, it also makes him even that much more valuable. Number 2 on this one is Joe Scally, and I think this one is kind of obvious, right? There are going to be times in the World Cup, and we have seen this in every edition of the World Cup, where either the U.S. is leading by a goal or the U.S. is tied 1-1, and now all of a sudden they're hanging on for dear life. And so that's why you have a Joe Scally, right? Because you're essentially parking the bus and you're playing for a draw, or you're trying to hold on for a win and you want to be a little bit more defensive. And that's exactly what Joe Scally is, right? He is a very good 1v1 defender on that right side. stay-at-home defender. And he's the type of guy that you absolutely want to bring to the World Cup, because you're going to have to make defensive substitutions at some point. And he's the type of guy that you want to have on your roster because of his defensive abilities. The interesting thing about Scally is he also might be able, in a pinch, if you need it, to be a third center back. Now, I don't necessarily like that idea because I actually think we do have center back coverage where we don't necessarily have to use them there, but it's nice to know that there might be some flexibility there because, again, I mean, the dude's first step is unbelievable. The dude is tactically aware, and his spatial awareness is unbelievable as well, too. All you have to do is look at a Borussia Mönchengladbach match in the Bundesliga to get an idea of just how good he is. But that being said, you carry him for that reason. Whether or not he starts or not, it's not even the point. The point is, like, when you're hanging on for dear life in a group stage match, or if you're in the round of 32 or the round of 16, and you're trying to advance and potentially protect a lead, Joe Scally is absolutely valuable to have on that roster. The third one I have is Alex Freeman, and right now I have him third in the depth chart because when you look at right back depth, he's probably the best of the remaining. So here's the wild part, right? Because so it's let's see. So I actually have Marlon Fossey right behind him. And I actually like Marlon Fossey, and I actually think he's quality. But that being said, he plays in the Belgian Pro League. And so you wonder about the competition, but I actually like his makeup. And then it's Brian Reynolds, maybe from Westerlo, who's actually really good. But again, he's playing in a league that, you question whether or not, the competition is good enough to warrant a call in. Me personally, I would have no problem calling in either of those guys. But then you're looking at MLS quality right back depth, right? So it's Nathan Harriel, who probably should not be on the roster. Shaq Moore is a no. DeAndre Yedlin is a no. So I mean, outside of those two, Marlon Fossey and a guy like Brian Reynolds, there really is not much depth. And I know that Pochettino likes Alex Freeman. And the reality is that second spot is going to be between those two because I only think that they carry two. Now, depending on how the numbers when it comes to center back play out, maybe Alex Freeman squeaks on the World Cup roster. But that being said, you actually have to ask yourself this question. Like, so for instance, let's say that the group is, I don't know. Let's say that they actually have a top 10 team in their group, like in England or in Italy or something like that. No, not Italy, but you get what I'm saying. Portugal, just throw that one out there, or a Germany. And then they have like a mid-tier team, and then they have a bottom team from the Asian Confederation. That being said, it's like when you look at Alex Freeman and you're kind of trying to picture it in your head, that the quality doesn't necessarily match up to the name. And I know that there's a lot of U.S. men's national team fans that will die on the hill that Alex Freeman's probably going to start. He's not. And I actually, as of right now, I don't even have him on the World Cup roster. Things can change, injuries can happen, but that being said, it's like if you're carrying four wing backs here, it's pretty obvious that there's going to be one guy not going to be able to make this roster. So it is what it is. Let's go to Naija Pakawa. Good to see you, Naija. Thanks for joining, man. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. The goalkeepers do look good. Okay. Specifically, which goalkeeper are you referring to? I'd like to know. Some people are saying Poch dislikes Scally. Yeah, there was this report about some golf cart incident during the Nations League, and that's why he hasn't been called in. But that being said, you also have to understand that you have to bring your best players to the World Cup, and Joe Scally is among those players playing in one of the best leagues in the world, and he's absolutely doing a dynamite job out there, right? And again, you're going to be in situations in the World Cup where you're hanging on for dear life, either trying to protect a draw or trying to protect a lead, or maybe trying to find your way back into it, but you have to be rock solid in the back. And Joe Scally is one of those type of guys that you absolutely have to carry on the roster. Let's go to center back. I think the first two are self-explanatory, even though that I'm not necessarily the biggest Tim Ream guy anymore. The fact remains that Chris Richards and Tim Ream are going to be going to the World Cup. Those two names are written in stone unless there's an injury. Number 3 is Mark McKenzie. I just think from a from a talent standpoint, and you look at the fact of what he's doing in Ligue 1 at the moment, he's actually playing in a back three, and he's actually playing incredibly well. And the fact that he has yet to necessarily get his feet wet under Mauricio Pochettino in terms of starting and getting minutes, I would probably like to think that that's going to change, and especially if this team permanently moves to a back three, you have to feel players that actually are comfortable playing in a back three, right? Think about the guys. Think about the guys who are the top 3. Chris Richards plays in a back three for Crystal Palace, plays on the right side, does very well. Tim Ream, essentially, I think he's playing left back for Charlotte, but essentially it's a back three. And Mark McKenzie plays in a back three. Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty are center back pairings for Celtic. They play in a back 4. And Nokai Banks plays with a team that actually adjusts between a back 4 and a back 3. So it's not like he's unaware. But that being said, it's like when you look pound for pound at the talent of this, here's like those 6 are the best 6 that we have to offer right now. Because right now, Miles Robinson is not going to cut it. Walker Zimmerman has been given an opportunity. He didn't get called back in. Then you have Tristan Blackman, who we just saw, not going to cut it. George Campbell, Jalen Neal from Montreal, probably not. Jackson Reagan of Seattle, probably not this cycle, maybe next. And then that's it, right? So it's like you like, I understand that this position isn't exactly as deep as we want it. But the fact is, the top 3 guys on my depth chart essentially play in a back three, 2 of them for sure. And at least in a pinch, if you need a guy like Austin Trusty to step in, who's left-footed, who's got pace, he's actually not bad on the ball, is a pretty decent passer. At least you have some sort of cover between Trusty and Nokai Banks. I'm not exactly the biggest fan of Cameron Carter-Vickers, but that being said, it's like when it comes to the talent depth in the center back pool, his name has to be somewhat included. Now, whether or not he actually plays is something completely different. But that being said, I actually kind of like this. With Chris Richards playing on the right side of the back three, Tim Ream playing on the left side of the back three, and Mark McKenzie playing a little bit more centrally. Now, if you want to flip-flop, Ream and McKenzie, whatever. It doesn't necessarily matter. The reality is that actually, to me, right now looks like a rock-solid back three, especially when you consider the cover of the 2 wing backs that that are going to be withdrawn, tracking back, and of course, there's always the potential of having 2 6s right in front of them, right? So there's going to be protection for that back 5. As of right now, I don't think you can do any better than those 6 center backs at the moment. There's AK Shags. What's up, bud? Come on, you Spurs. How do you feel about Ange Postecoglou going to Forest? It's funny. All right, let's go to the left back position, and this is kind of how I see it right now. Obviously, Anthony Robinson is number 1, and when he gets back, when he regains his form and he comes back in, and now you actually have your back 5 of Dest, Richards, McKenzie, Ream, and Robinson, that is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, seriously, talent for talent, you can put it up against some of our best back 4s that we've had. That is a very talented back 5, especially between Richards and Robinson. Good Lord, man! But what I like about Anthony, if you guys have ever watched Fulham play, you understand exactly how quality this dude is, and of course he's done it with the national team for a few years already. But the interesting thing is like when you're watching Fulham play and you watch the way that Fulham attack, they attack with wingbacks. Even though it comes in the disguise of is like an overlapping run on the left side, they always play Anthony Robinson forward. And the way that we look last night, playing down the wings, and now imagine instead of Max Arfson, you have Anthony Robinson going 1v1, a skill player like Anthony Robinson being able to create space and actually putting balls into the box. Now, the interesting thing, though, it's not necessarily traditional crosses. He actually prefers the low cross because he gets better accuracy. But that being said, one of the things that gets me excited is the fact that when you actually play with width and you're attacking down you're attacking down the bylines, it draws back fours apart, right? Which means you're going to allow dudes to crash the channels with a guy like Anthony Robinson, who's pinpoint accurate. God damn it, man. It gets me excited. He is obviously number one and will stay number one until he doesn't want to be number one. But Max Arfson is number two as of right now. I don't think you can put anybody else in this position. Max Arfson essentially has been getting a run since January from Camp Cupcake, and you saw the quotes that Pochettino was talking about Arfson, how he embodies the spirit of the player that he likes, and so right now there's a bromance between those two, and I don't know if like those two are like secretly meeting behind closed doors. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? One of those type of things, or if Arfson's got something on Poch, I don't know. But that being said, as far as I'm concerned, I think John Tolkien's the better player. I think John Tolkien's the better attacker, and especially when you think about the wingback situation, like Tolkien fits better. Not only is he good on the ball, but he's a very good set piece taker as well too. He just does a lot of things well. And when you consider the potential of a back five, all of a sudden his back is covered as well too, to the point where unoccupied space is not going to be a liability for him. He's not going to get burned. But for whatever reason, Max Arfson is number two as of right now. I would like to see John Tolkien get called in, and I would actually like to see him get a run of games. He was not really used in the Gold Cup. Like every once in a while, they brought him on for 10 minutes, that type of thing. Didn't get an idea of just exactly the type of player that he can be, because he's not being showcased right now. But that being said, like against El Salvador or Australia, bring him in and play him. If Anthony Robinson is not going to be in the next window for whatever reason, I think he is, but you never know. Let's just say, for hypothetically speaking, he's not. Bring Tolkien in, let him run, and let him actually get those minutes instead of Arfson, just so you know. Just so you know. I understand I think he's now in the 2 Bundesliga right now, as he got set back down with Holstein Kiel last year. But still, though, I think he's just a better player. But that being said, I will give Arfson credit. He looked better defensively in this window. But that being said, it's, against Japan, he had the cross and the assist with Zendeja. So I guess you have to acknowledge it. But that being said, anybody that has seen John Tolkien play understands that he was absolutely brilliant. Also, if you remember, he was in the Olympics in 2024, played well. He was actually one of the better players on that Olympic team. So me personally, there could be movement between 3 and 2. And I actually hope that Poch actually keeps an open mind and actually keeps an open competition. But as of right now, just like Alex Freeman on the other side, John Tolkien is right now sitting in third. And unless something drastically changes, I probably would assume the only 2 are going. On both wing backs. Maybe, again, if there's an injury at the center back, or if you feel like maybe you're only going to carry 5, then maybe there's some wiggle room. But I would find it hard to believe that, they're going to make wiggle room for a dude like John Tolkien, unless he actually goes out there and wins the spot on the roster. All right, let's move to the center defensive mids. And I think this almost seems actually, hold on real quick. We do have here we go. Let's hold on. So AK Shegs, did you buy any of those FIFA hospitality package? No, but I did register for tickets today, and it took me all day to get through. But eventually, when I got home, I was able to get through, and now I'm on the pre-sale list. So when they announce who actually is going to be eligible to buy tickets, hopefully my name gets pulled, because I am going to I believe it's the second leg group play for the United States. I think they're playing in my hometown in Seattle, and so of course it's a home World Cup, and they're playing in my hometown. So of course I'm going to go back and watch that, and I will literally pay $5,000 if I have to get tickets. Shed yeah, they were only $5,000 per person. Yeah, like listen, dude, I'm buying 2 tickets, so if I have to spend $5,000, the ex-wife better be grateful. And then Nija Bakwa says Tolkien is August Player of the Month. Yeah, exactly. Dude's quality. Dude is absolute quality. I'm glad you brought that up, man. Center defensive mid, Tyler Adams, obviously. I find it hard to believe that we're going to be back in that 4-2-3-1 narrow. I think this team was absolutely suited, having those 2 6s sitting on top of the 18. And the interesting thing about Christian Roldan was his performance allowed Tyler Adams to kind of play a little bit more like Tyler Adams, kind of being a free roaming defender, putting out fires. Tyler looked great yesterday, man. That was the first time he actually looked good in a long time. Not necessarily constrained, dealing with a back four that was always out of position. And of course, he was the one that was always trying to slide over into space to occupy it. And then inadvertently, he would find himself out of position. And of course, the U.S. Would get scored upon, right? Last night wasn't the case, man. Both of those guys actually played incredibly well. And I thought it was the direct play of Christian Roldan that will actually allow Tyler Adams to be free to actually play his style of game. I thought that pair yesterday was actually pretty brilliant. But Tyler Adams, number one, and of course he's one of the leaders of this team. And I think the leadership at this point is something that actually has to be talked about because we just don't have any. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. We have absolutely no leadership. And so Tyler kind of embodies that. And he's also probably our best center defensive mid, very technically gifted. And of course, if you guys watch Bournemouth, he has quietly turned into one of the best 6s in the Premier League. And it wouldn't shock me within the next 4 years he moves to a big club because I think he's actually earned the right. Dude's actually a baller. Number 2, Johnny Cardoso, kind of goes without saying. He's our second best technically gifted 6 in the pool, playing for Atletico Madrid. And of course, he's, again, playing pretty well for Atletico Madrid. Didn't get called into this one. And I understand the reason why, because the last time we saw Johnny, he just did not look good. And he hasn't really looked good for the national team this year at all. But that being said, you cannot deny the talent of Johnny Cardoso. He does everything well at the club level. There seems to be some weird disconnect between club and country. My hope, though, is that now that we saw this last night, and now that we saw this team respond, number one, but we also saw how well they played in this formation. I would be curious to see exactly what Johnny Cardoso looks like playing next to Tyler Adams in this formation. I'm sure there's going to be there might be a wonder of what a guy like Wes might be next to Tyler Adams. But that being said, because especially if you want to be a little bit more direct for the midfield, that actually might be something that Poch might flirt with. But that being said, it makes you wonder what Johnny Cardoso would look like next to Tyler in that position. But I think he's a clear cut to Tanner. Here's the weird thing about Tanner. He actually might be closer to 2 than a lot of people think. Right now, he's actually, over the course, I think it was like the last month in Ligue 1, he's actually one of 3 center defensive mids that are like having unbelievable work rates right now. And when you look at his, the technical ability of Tanner Tessman, he is absolutely getting better. And I'm glad that Lyon stayed up this year because they were about to get relegated. And it's nice to see that Tanner is actually flourishing now. The move from Venezia to Lyon has paid off for Tanner. And I would love to see him, especially this season, continue to get better, because I actually think that he can progress and actually work his way up into a much better league. I actually think his ceiling is unbelievable. I think he's got the same ceiling as Cardoso and Adams. And all this dude is doing is every single match is progressively getting better. And I would love to see Tanner challenge. There's a good possibility that all three make the club, make the World Cup roster, because I would probably assume they're going to carry three. At the very least, they're going to carry three. So the question is like, that third center mid position, or the 8 of what we traditionally would call it, that's going to be the interesting one, right? Are they going to carry somebody that has that flexibility of playing both? I guess a Sebastian Berhalter or Christian Roldan, whatever the case may be. And of course, number 4, Aiden Morris, who's actually playing unbelievable this last month, in the championship. I think he had 3 man of the match performances with Middlesbrough. I actually saw him play against Norwich City. I think Josh scored in that one as well too. Josh is scoring against everyone at the moment. But that being said, that dude plays with no fear. I love the dude. I love the fact that he's willing to mix it up. And if it means taking a yellow, he'll take it. That dude is a throwback. But he's also not a dummy. He's technically gifted, and will not overexpose himself in the run of play. I actually like Aiden Morris, and that's also going to be interesting to see what happens over the next cycle, because I think he's a next cycle guy, depending on how the next 4 years plays out for Tyler Adams. Just out of curiosity, let me find out about Tyler real quick. He is 26 years old. Yeah, so in 4 years, he's going to be 30. And the question is whether or not that is going to be something valuable in 2030, especially if he's still playing at a high level. Do they carry him as that third cycle guy? I maybe we'll see. But that being said, Aiden Morris for me is like that next cycle guy, where you probably would assume that in the next 4 years he makes the jump. Speaking of the center mid, our two best box to box midfielders right now, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, kind of goes without saying. And also in this areas where I actually have 4, and I'll explain myself with Christian Roldan just so people don't freak out. In that first match against South Korea, we badly missed Weston McKennie in his ability. This team absolutely showed no ambition in the midfield. They weren't playing direct at all. As a matter of fact, they weren't really doing much of anything against South Korea. And Weston McKennie, and especially his ability to kind of be a deep line playmaker, but he also roams high as well too. And his movement is something that is badly missed right now. Now, the conversation with Wes was, especially in this camp right here, was whether or not he was actually, informed to come in, right? Because he hasn't really played a lot of minutes right now for Juventus. But I would probably expect, just like the last 2 years with Wes, coming in, being overlooked, and then of course he slowly works his way into minutes, eventually becoming a valuable first team member. So I would probably assume that by the time we hit November, maybe in October, depending on what happens at Juventus, but probably by November, that Paraguay-Uruguay window, I would probably assume that Wes is probably not only going to get minutes, but he's probably going to come in form. The other guy is Yunus Musa, who did get his move to Atalanta, and I would probably assume that coming back off the international window, we're going to see a lot of Yunus Musa in Serie A, and I'm actually happy for him. And now my hope is that Atalanta plays him correctly. I understand the curious thought of trying to make him into a winger because he's got speed, and he's actually got he's got a decent first touch. But let's be real, he's not a winger. his best position is actually at that box-to-box position. And of course, he does have a history of performing well at that position as well, too. Now, I also think Yunus Musa is also the type of guy that you carry on the World Cup roster because he does have flexibility, and it's the speed that makes coaches wonder. I think that Yunus Musa is a valuable commodity. What I don't like about Yunus over the last couple of years is the way that he's been played. And of course, this has nothing to do with Yunus. This has everything to do with his coaching because they had him playing at right back. They had him playing at the 6. They had him playing at the 10. They had him playing on the wing, and he became like a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And I think that kind of disrupted his development. He's still a very young dude. But one of the things that, especially when it pertains to the national team, is you're looking for form. And if you have him playing 4 different positions, it's virtually impossible for a player to come into camp on form because, quite honestly, if you're asking him to do a job and he's been playing right back and you're asking him to play a box-to-box, it's virtually impossible for that player to step in and actually do a job, especially if he hasn't been playing it. I know some people think that, it doesn't necessarily matter of the position, it's all about form. But again, if you talk to anybody that's played this game, they'll tell you the exact same thing. And I think this third one right here is up for grabs. I really do. And I think this is going to come down to Jack McGlynn or Christian Roldan. And what's interesting about Jack, and I think we saw it yesterday, in space, if given time, his left foot is dangerous. And of course, as a set piece specialist, like late in matches, if you're hunting for a goal for a win, and you are able to work it up the pitch and you get a whistle, that's where Jack McGlynn comes in handy because he does have a very dangerous left foot. The problem with Jack is that he's not quick. That's his biggest problem. And in the World Cup, especially for the U.S., but with every team that's most likely going to be competing, you have to match pace. And that's the biggest problem with Jack. It's what Christian actually has above Jack. Jack's got the foot. Christian's got the leadership and the pace. It would be interesting to see exactly how this plays out. And I will say this. If you've been paying attention to Pochettino, since that he's come on board, he generally rewards players for good windows. And I would probably assume that we're going to see Christian in the October window. I would probably assume it. Especially when you look at what he did for Diego, what he did for Patrick Agyemang, what he did for Max Arfston, Alex Freeman, Jack McGlynn, Sebastian Berhalter. He rewarded those guys for a pretty decent Gold Cup. And I think in this window in particular, we saw that a guy, we started seeing the cream rise to the top, right? And then that first one, we saw that Sebastian Berhalter probably is not going to be on this team. He was given some looks, didn't necessarily perform well. And now as you see certain guys kind of move down in the pecking order, certain guys are going to get different looks, right? So Jack McGlynn comes off the bench yesterday, and he literally puts 2 pinpoint shots on net. One of them rings off the crossbar. I actually thought it went in at first. But that being said, that's the type of guy you want to bring on late in matches in the World Cup, right? Because especially if you're able to work it deep and you actually get him on a run where there's space, McGlynn can be dangerous. As for Christian Roldan, understand, he's on this roster because of his leadership. And when you look at his season in total, what has happened in Seattle is a masterstroke. Yes, Brian Schmetzer plays a huge role into this, but think of this in context, okay? The Sounders start off the season losing Paul Arriola for the season, and then they lose Jordan Morris for a good chunk of it. They lose João Paulo. They lost Albert Rusnik for a bit. Like these type of injuries sink teams all the time. And yet, for whatever reason, the Sounders not only stayed within the top 4 in the Western Conference, but they also win Leagues Cup. And specifically in Leagues Cup, look at the job that he did against Messi. Messi, outside of one run at the 10 minutes into the second half, outside of that run to the box, Christian Roldan was literally draped off his back. That was the type of performance that probably caught Pochettino's attention. But also, you look at the leadership qualities that he possesses. And especially in yesterday's match, the fact that he was getting in the ear of Tyler Adams, getting in the ear of Chris Richards. That dude is not afraid to actually hold people accountable, which is something that is sorely missing on this team. Like, put the bullshit to the side. The only thing that he cares about is winning. You kind of need a couple of those dudes, right? But when you look at his body of work, he's essentially a coach on the pitch. Yes, I understand. He's not better than McKennie. He's not better than Musa. Got it. I agree. And I don't think that yesterday was this brilliant performance. It wasn't great, but it also wasn't terrible either. And when you look at his work rate, and you look at his runs, and you look at the fact that he was the one that was tracking back, and he was the one that was doing the things that he absolutely needed to, was the reason why, me personally, in my opinion, that Tyler Adams actually got back to playing his best football. Because he had somebody dependable essentially right off his right shoulder. And I actually think that's going to play into it. Now, here's the thing. Do I think Christian gets put onto it? Probably not. But what I will say is that injuries will happen. He is the type of guy who is the last minute call in to the World Cup roster because somebody fell out with an injury. And I would probably assume at this point, like if you're going to take an MLS center mid at this point, Christian Roldan is probably better than the alternatives. As we look at the chat, haven't seen or heard from McKennie in a while. Is he really our best midfielder? I've always been disappointed when I watch him play. It depends on, here's the thing. It's like he's not a 10 and he's not a 6. He really is a box-to-box. But, that's the thing. It's like, if we're going to be playing, here's the weird thing. If we're going to be playing what we seen last night, or a 3-5-2, or what we saw last night, there's going to be a want to try to put him on the pitch, and it makes sense because there's a lot of things that he can do. Like, I think he's at his best when he's playing that deep line playmaker. Me personally, the dude brings a lot of quality. The one thing that I think that he breaks lines. That's what I like about his passing. He breaks lines. I like him a lot. The one thing that Musa has on him is pace. I think McKennie's better on the ball, but I also think that if you want somebody to run in space, you probably want Musa. So he says Rokas Puskás. Rokas Puskás. Yeah, what's interesting is he plays for Hajduk Split. He plays in the Croatian league, my guy. Listen, you're probably right. I got to be honest with you. I haven't seen him play this year, mainly because I don't watch the Croatian league, and I watch a lot of football, which maybe it's on me because I'm like low key addicted to the Scottish Premier League. So maybe that's on me, but maybe this weekend I'll sit down and watch Puskás play for Hajduk Split. But that being said, it's weird though, right? Because if Puskás was on the radar, he probably would be in. You know what I mean? Or at least he would be considered. Maybe there's internal discussions. I don't know. Yeah, and I just, guys, I just look at this and I think to myself, it's like there are spots on a World Cup roster for MLS players. Like, I don't think it should be 50-50. That's not what I'm saying at all. But that being said, there are spots that especially with the expanded rosters now to 26, like there are spots for dudes, especially those that have leadership skills. Center attacking mid, obviously Malik Tillman, by far. And this is like, I don't give a shit if he wasn't in camp. He was our best attacking player at the Gold Cup, and that is undisputable. And I think Malik actually stepped out of his comfort zone a little bit, and I think he flourished. And now all of a sudden he goes into the Bundesliga, playing for one of the bigger teams in the Bundesliga, and he's actually had a really good go. That was going to be the interesting thing, to see if he could actually make the jump from the Eredivisie to the Bundesliga, but not just like playing for a mid-tier team like Wolfsburg, but for Leverkusen, a team that I believe won the Bundesliga 2 years ago. He's only played in one match so far, but he's already scored a goal. It was like the last match before the international break. Dude's sensational. And what the thing that gets me excited, man, is, so imagine if you're going 3-4-2-1. Okay, and you're attacking with two outside wing backs, and your inside forwards on the left is Christian Pulisic, and on the right it's Malik Tillman. You know what I mean? And maybe you have a deep lying playmaker instead of a secondary six, and it's Wes coming from underneath. And now you're pinging balls up the left and right side, and now all of a sudden, crashing in the box, you're going to have Balogun. Balogun almost like a fox in the box, but you have Christian and Malik coming underneath. And if you need some backup, then you have Wes. Holy shit. That's the interesting thing, right? Because I like the idea of Christian playing underneath with Tillman, making those underneath runs from Balogun. Unbelievable. Like, to me, that just gets me, I hate to use this term, but it gets me fucking moist. Gio Reyna, I have it too. I think you kind of have to. When you look at the center attacking mid position, these are the top two players in our pool. And Gio Reyna, like, here's the thing. I get it, man. Nobody really wants to discuss him because he just made the move to Borussia Mönchengladbach. But that being said, he's probably going to play. And I understand that a lot of people don't want to talk about Gio until he actually gets minutes. Fair. But that being said, I think he's still only 21. Kid is young. I realize that he's been injured the last couple seasons. It's been start stop with Gio. But that being said, it's like the intrigue is still there. And if he gets a run of starts for Borussia Mönchengladbach, or if he finds his way into the starting 11 by the time December rolls around, and so now we're talking the February camp, or maybe he finds it before New Year's, and we're talking about that potentially that November camp. You kind of have to talk about Gio Reyna, and I still think he's our best pure passer. Like he can easily be a talisman. That his ability and his talents can unlock attacks, and he just hasn't seen it. We just haven't seen it really, and so that's kind of like the unknown. But pound for pound, pure talent, these two are the top two. And if I'm going into the World Cup, I have Gio on it as of right now. Things can definitely change. But at this stage, I probably bring Gio. Now, the crazy part about this is, because Gio is the unknown, it also kind of sheds some light on Diego Luna. And Diego has been given a run this entire year, and for the most part, he's been good. Struggled against better opposition. Let's keep it real. Struggled against Mexico. Struggled against Turkey and Switzerland. Struggled against South Korea. But we know that he can thrive in CONCACAF. Cool. So does that mean he's a Gold Cup level player? or can he actually be trusted against, I guess you can say top 30 opponents? Is that worth taking a risk of bringing him to the World Cup? Because I probably would assume that Diego's probably going to make the move overseas at some point. If not in January, then after the World Cup, right? And it's like, what is the trust level right now for you guys? Like me personally, I'm carrying 3. But yet I don't, right now I have Diego at 3 just because of the trust factor that he has with Poch. And that's the reason why I have the Aronson brothers 4 and 5. I don't think Diego Luna's name is set in stone at the moment. But that being said, the more that he continues to be brought into camp, it has to be talked about, right? And again, I still think pound for pound, those might be the 3. But again, we also have to talk about flexibility with this, right? Because that's what the Aronson brothers bring. Paxton makes the move back to MLS for a reason. Because he knows he can compete in the Netherlands. He knows it. He's coming off a career year with FC Utrecht, right? But he was not getting called into the national team. And now all of a sudden we're less than a year away and he wants to be a part of that conversation. So he makes the move. Not only is he getting paid as a DP, but now he's in Major League Soccer. And now he's going to be putting himself in a position where he's going to be noticed because obviously, Pochettino has been calling in a lot of MLSers. But the great thing about Paxton is he can play 3 positions. And he's pacey. Not as pacey as his brother. Brendan is that other guy that we have to talk about because Brendan is the dude that plays with all heart. He's all pace, all heart. Last time we saw him in the Gold Cup, I think he scored a goal. And now he's playing in the Premier League with Leeds. I don't know if Leeds stay up. I doubt it. But there's going to be I would probably assume from October to March, as the bulk of the Premier League schedule continues to play out, Brendan Aronson is going to get a lot of run. And all that means is iron sharpens iron. I don't know what this means as far as goal production because, Leeds is kind of trashed when it comes to the attack. But that being said, if he's in form and he can play 3-4 different positions, that's the type of guy that you want in the World Cup roster. Because you know what he's going to give you. And so I guess that's my question. That's my internal conflict, right? So if things work out and Gio actually gets minutes and he's actually doing well, he's going to be on the roster. But then it's like that third cam, man. Is this a time for Diego Luna, or is this something that's more pragmatic, like Brendan Aronson or Paxton Aronson? 2 brothers that play the 10 but can play anywhere on the pitch, and Brendan, is the quicker of the 2 and plays with nothing but heart. Is Gio still at Dortmund? No, he's at Borussia Mönchengladbach. Just made the move. He was slated to go to Parma, but that deal fell through, and now he's at Borussia Mönchengladbach. He's playing with Joe Scally. As of right now, I got Luna 3, and I think even with the performance against South Korea, just the fact that Poch probably is bringing him again in October. I think that was established when he broke his nose against Venezuela in Camp Cupcake and went back in. I think that endeared him to Poch to the point where it's like I think there's a level of trust with Diego, and I guess the thing with Diego is between now and the World Cup is fine tuning the little things that's going to make him a little bit more dangerous against better teams if that can happen, or maybe there's a move in January. which would also help as well too. But if you're asking me if I'm taking 3, I'm taking Tillman Reyna and probably Brendan Aronson. Let's move to the right side now. And right now it's kind of weak, man. Let's just kind of keep this correct here. There's 2 for sure. On talent right now, and I think after yesterday, with the performance, actually, let me take this another step. But the performance that was on Saturday against South Korea when he came off the bench, and essentially was everywhere. It was kind of wreaking havoc against South Korea in that second half. And then he backed it up again against Japan with the goal. And that movement, that essentially the movement to get on the end of that arcing cross, man, that was absolutely brilliant, right? Now all of a sudden, he scores in what I would consider it actually a big call for him, because Zendejas was always that guy on the outside looking in. But here's the reality, man. With the fact that the depth at right wing is dog shit, absolute dog shit at right wing. Like it's not really hard to kind of snip this one out, right? So for me, I think right now it's Weah and Zendejas just on pure talent and ability. Zendejas can get down the pitch, right? Like if you're trying to play balls long, Zendejas can get on the end of it with the same thing with Weah. Now, this is where the drop off is, right? So I got Taylor Booth's name, maybe. I doubt it. You're not going to see Griffin Yao. You're probably not going to see Matko Milovic. Probably not going to see Kate Cowell. Probably not Cole Campbell. Right? So it's like those 2, at least those 2 are competent on the right side if you need it. Let's see. We have Keyshawn says Poch out. I don't know, Keyshawn. AK Shed says peace out. Thanks for showing up, man. And then he says Poch is realizing we create through our wing backs. Yeah, well, dude, historically, we have always been a counterattacking nation, so it is what it is. Let's see. Yeah, and again, man, this seems kind of unless there's somebody that is actually going to actually introduce themselves between now and the World Cup, it kind of makes sense. And the other thing that's also worth noting is that Brendan Aronson can also play out wide, and also Yunus Musa, although I wouldn't recommend it. But that being said, there is cover if absolutely need be on the right. But that being said, I don't think we're actually going to be in a 4-2-3-1. I would maybe it's an opponent, like opponent to opponent. But that being said, it's like, maybe this, maybe the rights, like as of right now, I actually have the right side listed. But that being said, things are fluid and things can change on the dime. But right now, yeah, Timmy Weah and Zendejas right now, 1-2 on the right side for me. On the left side, obviously Christian. And I thought Christian actually played his best game yesterday in a very, very long time. I was starting to wonder when the real Christian Pulisic would actually show up to the national team. And we actually kind of found out that the tactics that Poch was using, trying to float him in a little centrally. But the problem with a narrow attack is the fact that since we had no width and we weren't essentially running with overlappers, all they had to do was just play like a mid block right in front of the 18-yard box, and that was it. Christian had no movement. And then yesterday, all of a sudden, they released him. Not only was he played long, he was played underneath. And so the interesting thing is, like, maybe it's going to be like a 3-4-1-2 with maybe a target 9 and an off 9. Kind of using Pulisic in that Clint Dempsey type of role. That would be pretty tasty as well too. But as of right now, Pulisic obviously number 1 and Haji Wright number 2, without a doubt. then again, this is where the drop off is for me as well too. Haji Wright has to be on the World Cup roster. Not only is he a very competent 9, as we saw in the Carabao Cup, but also in the championship as well too. But he also can play on the left, and he does a good job on the left too. He's got pace, he's got strength, he can hold the ball up, and Haji is quality. And then I got Kevin Paredes because it's kind of again, it's kind of like Taylor Booth on the right side. It's like pick them. It's like, who are you going to put out there? Maybe one of the brothers from Philadelphia, not the youngest one, but maybe the older one. I doubt it. But that being said, Paredes is kind of interesting too. Plays in the Bundesliga, but he can also play up top, or he can play back as well too if you need depth on the backside. So Paredes is kind of interesting, but again, it's kind of a stretch. Let's see. Here we go. Pulisic and Zendejas were basically 2-10s from what I saw. Yeah, that's kind of what it looked like again. But the interesting thing is that started off as a counterattack, but then as confidence grew, like the U.S. were on the front foot, and I can understand why you thought that, because I actually saw that as well a little bit as well too. But it's kind of interesting when you're actually having Christian kind of playing that free role where if you need to send him long, you can use creativity and space 1v1, or if you're playing Arston up the left side or Anthony Robinson up the left side, and you're going to allow him just to run underneath and wreak havoc. Pulisic, man, that's gonna look interesting. He says Brendan over Luna, yeah, 100%. At this point, I would probably say that as well too. But that being said, let's understand that Poch actually absolutely loves Luna. I like Luna too. I think he's a good player, but he definitely needs to make the move overseas, 100%. He says a 3-2-4-1. Yeah, I mean that's essentially what it was, really. If you really want to break it down, that's exactly what it was. I want to see Pep and Ballo up top. Yeah, Pepe and Ballo. Yeah, see, that's the thing, especially if you're going to run 2 up top, like in the 3-5-2, as you just mentioned, Keyshawn, with one of them kind of playing that off 9. I wonder how that would affect Pepe though, right? Does Pepe actually have, like Ballo, does he actually have to be that target 9 in order to be effective, or is he okay playing off the shoulder of 1? But here's the interesting thing. Let me ask you a question real quick, Keyshawn. As of right now, who do you have number 1 at that position? Is it Pepe or is it Ballo? And he says Sargent. Yeah, Sargent's going to be on the World Cup roster, though. Believe it. Speaking of strikers, let's get into it. Last one. Flo Balogun, as of right now, probably is number 1. And again, what was interesting about this, roster was that number 1, Brian White was actually called in above him, and it was only because of an injury did Balogun come in, and thank God Balogun came in, because after 60 minutes of Josh Sargent, Balogun came on, and all of a sudden the dynamic changed, and then all of a sudden we were actually dangerous. And of course, in that match against Japan, Christian Pulisic played a nice little fucking weighted through ball, and Balogun with this just unbelievable finish at the far post, and that's exactly what you want to see from your strikers. Nice little silky touch, but it's also his movement too. So when he makes runs, it's with purpose, it's with intent, and it's something that when you think about the physicality of Balogun and the pace, all concerns about his injury history is gone, right? He looks absolutely fantastic. Now the question is with Ricardo Pepi, because I actually think Pepi is the best striker in our pool. And I think he's taken to the Eredivisie quite nice, but now that he's coming back from injury, and now they got another guy right now who's the number 1. The question is there going to be enough time for Pepi to win that spot and hold it down and continue to do what he does best, which is put the ball in the back of the net? Because I actually think Pepe is I think he's a better striker. And I actually think he's a better fit for this team as the number 1 over Balogun. But again, the question is whether or not he's going to languish as the number 2 for like 3 or 4 months before eventually getting that job late in the season. Who knows, man? Who knows? But I would probably assume that Pepe will probably. I don't know if he's going to be in the October camps, but I can definitely see him in the November camp. Maybe he's in October. The more the merrier. But that being said, Pepe right now, I have him at number 2, but 1 and 2 can flip on a dime. I got Josh as number 3, and I understand he didn't have a good game against South Korea, but dude is in form. Dude is scoring goals out of his ass right now for Norwich, and that's the reason why he's going to continue to be as the 3rd striker. Because Patrick Aubameyang, I'm going to say it again, Patrick Aubameyang is not good. I understand that he had a good run this year, but look at who he was scoring against, and then look at how he did against teams that are actually competent. Turkey, Switzerland, Mexico had problems. And especially in those matches with his hold-up play, dude was not good at all. I have Patrick Aubameyang ranked number 4th just because, again, there is a trust with Pochettino, and that has to count for something. The question, and now all of a sudden he makes the move to Derby County. And by the way, he's not actually going to take the pitch until October because I think he had a groin injury that required him to be out for the first month and a half, whatever. And I don't think he's going to be in the October camp at all because I don't think there's going to be enough time for him, to get his form and get on the pitch and actually, make an effort that would be required worthy of coming into the national team camp. Because right now, Josh Sargent is the best striker in the championship, and that form is going to continue. And because of that, he is going to get called into the camp. And I don't have a problem with Sargent being the 3rd striker on the roster because that means, in that case, you can actually deploy him strategically and put him in a position where he might be able to bang in a goal, maybe. The other name is number 5 on the list is Damian Downs, and I don't think Damian Downs gets enough love. I thought it was the right move, moving from the Bundesliga from a team that just got promoted, where there was questions about whether or not he was going to be able to get minutes. Now he goes to Southampton in the championship, and he's actually getting minutes. And I actually think that by the time we hit January, he's going to be starting for Southampton up top. That dude is a real one. And we saw it yesterday when he came on, his ability to weave his way through traffic, and it put a point blank shot on net yesterday. Like that dude knifed between 2 defenders, and that was a good ball that got put through too. He's got to finish it, but Damian showed us what type of talent that he has. And I actually, as of right now, U.S. strikers in the championship right now, Sargent number 1, Downs number 2, Aubameyang number 3. I don't think Aubameyang's going to succeed. I'll be the first one to say it. I just don't. Is there a situation where we carry 4 strikers, especially if we're playing 2? That's the other question to ask. That's it's going to be a number game. It's going to be a numbers game to decide which how many strikers that Poch wants to carry. And also whether or not Haji Wright kind of fits into this equation as well too, because he's also a striker who plays on the left, right? So, there might be a situation where, let's just say they are playing 2 and you're playing a false 9, and you have a guy like Flo Balogun, and then you have a guy like Haji Wright kind of playing off him a little bit. Maybe. But that being said, man, I wouldn't rule out Damian Downs at this point. That's all I'm saying. And I know that you said that right there, that Sargent, his chances are kind of gone. I don't believe that at all. As long as Sargent's in form and he's scoring for Norwich City, he's going to get called into the national team. Keyshawn says Balogun. You think Balogun's better than Pepe right now? But it's not by much. And let me ask you a question real quick, Keyshawn. What is the overriding factor in that decision? What is Balogun? Is it form because he's healthy and Pepe's still working back right now? Or is it is there a quality that he has that you believe that's overriding? Oh, he says right here, mainly because he runs off the ball. Fair. And he says, I think Pepe's a better finisher as well. There you go. Yeah, Downs needs more game time, but Poch gave it to Aubameyang. Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Aubameyang's not going to be healthy, and it's not going to get first team minutes until October because of the groin, right? So now you have to wonder whether or not that's going to take time for him to actually develop even more form, right? Like you wonder how long it's going to take him for him to get caught up to speed. Because here's the one thing that people don't talk about in the championship is that it's a tough league. People think Major League Soccer is a tough league. And it is quite a physical league. But that being said, man, the championship is no joke. And it's a meat grinder. And you wonder whether or not Aubameyang actually has the wherewithal to compete in that league. We're going to find out real quick, right? Notice I don't have Daryl DK or any of these other dudes on this list just because I don't see any purpose. I think it would be a waste of time. But there's there's also, Jordan Pifok, who's with Stade Rem. You got Samuel Adenran of Las Glins. But that being said, it's like you look at the depth pool. I can't see any situation where Brandon Vasquez gets called in. Jordan Morris probably not. Just because, again, the injury problem with him. And you also wonder whether or not, Jordan is at that point in his career where it absolutely makes sense. I think that probably was 2022 probably was it. But that being said, it's like, there is quality, but that being said, it's like these five are clear-cut the best strikers in the pool. And right now, Flo kind of gets it for me. I think that was the type of performance where you tell your coach straight up, like, it's over. It's over. There's no need to look further. And that's what, that's the one thing that I liked about Josie Altidore back in the day, because he actually had those statement type of performances. It's the same thing that Eddie Johnson, by the way, used to have as well too. People forget about Eddie. That dude was a baller. When I think about the history of the strikers in this of this national team, they always had that edge, right? They always had those statement games and those moments where it's like that they just remind you exactly why they're so quality. Like Brian McBride against Portugal, Eric Winalda. Eric Winalda had like a 40-yard shot in the 91 Gold Cup. That's legendary. His free kick against Switzerland. It's like, dude, we have a lineage of dudes that can put the ball in the back of the net, man. Guys that are absolutely confident. Balogun's got it, man. Balogun's got it. And I can't wait to see that race to see who's going to be number one between him and Pepe when Pepe's actually at full steam, man. But it's also kind of curious to see exactly how those three strikers in the championship play out as well too. We have Blue Shark. What's up, Blue? Good to have you along, man. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. We got a great team. I don't know, man. Let's hold off on using adjectives like great. What I will say is that there's talent. And it felt to me that Poch, the biggest problem that I had with Poch when we hired Poch was simple. He doesn't have international experience, so he doesn't understand the simplicity of what the international game requires, right? At its core, it's not club football where you have 6, 7, 8 months with your players where you can instill your philosophy and you have time to work with them and you're especially trying to communicate what you're trying to do and the reason why you're trying to do it, because we only have 5 international windows a year and they only have them for 10 days. It's virtually impossible for a guy like Poch to communicate just the exact style of which he wants to play, and then expect his players to go out and execute it, right? If anything, it requires ruthless pragmatism, right? It's the reason why I didn't like Greg Berhalter, because he wanted to play like Barcelona 2012, and we just didn't necessarily have the talent pool to pull that off, right? So that was one of the biggest reasons why I didn't like. I was reserved with Poch. The other thing was the fact that I don't think he knows the talent pool all that well. I think he knows who the Christian Pulisics of the world are. But that being said, it's like I don't think he understood the depth of this pool to understand exactly how his system actually fit it. Because if you remember, from day one till that South Korea game, he wanted to play like Tottenham Hotspur 2016-17. Like that's quintessential Poch football, right? Except we don't have Harry Kane. And we don't have a Sonny. And we don't have a Christian Eriksen or a Dele Alli or a Lucas Moura or a Musa Sissoko. We don't have Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen. We just don't have those. We don't have that type of quality. What we have are quality technical center mids, whether it's defensive or a box to box. Historically, we develop good center backs. And we usually have very, very, very good goalkeepers. For forever, we usually played a 4-4-2 because we actually did have enough quality in our outfield players, especially our forward players, where we can counterattack and we're able to get results, right? And as the years progressed, and we went from Bora Milutinovic to Bruce Arena, who kind of fine-tuned it, and then Bob Bradley. Where all of a sudden we are now in a 4-4-2 diamond because we have Michael Bradley and Jermaine. we had Jermaine Jones that came in, and Bradley was moved to the 10. And they were using, they were using Landon and Clint up top, right? So it's, that's the type of team that we are. We are historically, and I still think it's true today, that we are a counterattacking nation. And I think the biggest lie that we were ever sold was by Jurgen Klinsmann, thinking that we can actually be a front-footed team, knowing that we just don't develop those players, man. Seriously, like name a winger outside. Like obviously Christian was not developed in the American system, right? He was developed overseas. So name a winger, like a world-class winger that was developed in the U.S. system. It's all right, man. I'll wait. The answer is we don't. Ricardo Pepi was an MLS, an MLS developed player, and I think in a lot of ways that maybe the book is still out on Pepi. We'll see, but that's the thing. It's like very rarely, very rarely do we develop wingers and strikers in this country, right? They usually develop overseas if we get them at all. Right. That was the beauty about Clint. Clint was only in Major League Soccer for a brief time before he eventually made it overseas. Same thing with Josie. I think what's his name? Bobby Wood. I'm trying to think. Let's see. We have Naija Bakwa, who says round of 16 would be enough. No, it's not. We need to get out of this thinking because that's what we do. Like that's our mentality right now, right? And until we actually progress past it, we're going to be trapped in this mindset, right? Because like we've had such good talented national teams where we probably could have made a deep run. We were a non-handball called away in 2002. Like if they called it, we win and we're in the semifinals. 2014, which was probably the most talented team we've ever had. Me personally, like on paper, that team easily probably could have gotten to a quarter. Shit happens. That's the World Cup, right? So I look at this. This is the second cycle for a lot of these guys. So they've been there. They understand what it feels like, what the expectation levels are, and I don't know. It's like like as I rank this, we don't know what the what the roster looks like yet. But like when I break it down and put it on paper, it's like I kind of go over some of these old national teams that we had. It's like it's up there, man. It's up there. It has the potential to do something really special, right? And that I'm kind of with Keyshawn here. Yeah, like I think it's I think we should be talking quarterfinals. I really do. I really do. Because the talent is there, man. Like I remember the days where we were talking about if we can just get out of the group. Actually, let's be real. I remember actually the days where we were talking about qualifying, because I do remember '89 and the $1 million goal by Caligiuri down in Trinidad. I remember that. It was on ESPN. I watched it. I remember being like 9 years old. But yeah, there was a time where we're talking about whether or not we can qualify. Then we became a nation that did qualify, and then it was, can we get out of the group? And now it's like we know for a fact we can qualify. We know for a fact we can get out of the group. We can even win the group. The question is can we get past the round of 16? It's like we actually have to start asking ourselves the right questions. And it's not can we, it's why can't we? Why can't we make a quarterfinal run? We have the talent, man. We have the talent. All right. So I want to thank Keyshawn. I want to thank Nyjah Bakwa, Blue Shark, AK Shags, for dropping by the chat today. You guys are awesome. I want to thank all you guys that have been tuning in. And let me know, man. Post down in the chat and let me know how you feel about this. Let me know what positions you think are really an open competition and how you have them, man. But most importantly, man, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons because, again, man, I am absolutely grateful to be in this space. I do love U.S. soccer when it comes to the national team. And yeah, man, I am a fan of all U.S. soccer, so that means Major League Soccer and the USL as well, too. I think this is a good soccering nation, and it absolutely can't be better. So, I appreciate the love that I've been shown so far, and I look forward to seeing this channel grow. So, definitely make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will be back this weekend with some Premier League content because we have the pre-match build-up on Friday for Spurs versus West Ham, and of course we have the Tottenham Hotspur watch-along on Saturday. But I will be back with more USMNT content on Sunday. So we have a full slate ahead. I do want to thank you guys. So enjoy your Wednesday night. Take care, guys.